I was watching the first snowfall of December through my living room window in Boulder, Colorado, when I noticed something that made my blood run cold, and it had nothing to do with the temperature outside. Patricia Kennedy, the president of our Meadowbrook Hills Homeowners Association, was standing in my driveway with her phone pressed against her ear, pointing at my heated driveway system while gesturing wildly to two other HOA board members who flanked her like bodyguards. My name is Xavier, and I had just installed the most beautiful piece of modern engineering a Colorado homeowner could ask for: a radiant heated driveway system that melted snow on contact. No more shoveling at 5 in the morning before work. No more ice patches that turned my sloped driveway into a death trap. No more dumping rock salt that killed my landscaping and corroded my car's undercarriage. Just clean, dry pavement year-round. I walked outside in my slippers, immediately regretting the decision as the cold bit through my socks. Patricia turned to face me with that expression I had come to know too well over the past 3 years living here. The one that said she had found another reason to make my life miserable. "Henry," she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "we need to talk about this monstrosity you have installed." I looked down at my driveway, which looked exactly like it had before, except now it was clear of snow while everyone else's driveways were covered in a white blanket. "What monstrosity? It's a heated driveway." "Exactly," Patricia said, as if I had just confessed to running an illegal gambling operation. "Did you get approval from the HOA board before installing this?" I felt my jaw tighten. "I read through the CC and Articus 3 times. There's nothing in there about heated driveways." I also submitted my installation plans to the Architectural Review Committee 2 months ago and never heard back. "The silence was not approval," Patricia snapped, her perfectly manicured finger now pointing directly at my chest. "You need explicit written permission for any modification to the exterior of your property." "It's under my driveway," I said slowly. "You cannot even see it." "We can see the effects of it," said Martin Chambers, one of the board members standing behind Patricia. He was a retired accountant who seemed to measure his self-worth by how many rules he could enforce. "Your driveway is clear while everyone else's has snow. It creates an aesthetic inconsistency in the neighborhood." I stared at him. "An aesthetic inconsistency? Are you actually suggesting that my driveway is supposed to have snow on it for the sake of matching my neighbors? The uniformity of our community is what maintains our property values," Patricia interjected. "When you moved here, you agreed to uphold certain standards." "Standards that don't include forcing me to have a dangerous icy driveway," I shot back. "My installation is completely up to code. I had permits from the city. Professional installation. Everything is legal and safe." Patricia's eyes narrowed. "But not HOA approved." "You will be receiving a formal violation notice. You have 14 days to remove the system or face daily fines of $100. "Remove it?" I felt my voice rising. "Do you have any idea what this costs to install? Over $15,000. You want me to rip it all out because you don't like that my driveway is snow-free? You should have thought about that before making unauthorized modifications," Patricia said coldly. She turned on her heel, her two cronies following behind her like ducklings. I stood there in my wet slippers, anger and disbelief coursing through me. This was not the first time Patricia had targeted me. When I first moved in, she had cited me for having my trash cans visible from the street, even though they were in the same spot everyone else kept theirs. Then it was my mailbox being the wrong shade of black. Then my lawn being a quarter-inch too tall during a week I was out of town for a work conference. The woman had made it her personal mission to make my life difficult, though I had never understood why. I went back inside and immediately called my real estate attorney, David Chen, who had helped me with the house purchase. He listened to my story and sighed heavily. "Did you keep copies of your submission to the Architectural Review Committee?" he asked. "Of course. I sent it certified mail and have the receipt showing they received it." "Good." In Colorado, if an HOA doesn't respond to an architectural review request within 60 days, it's generally considered approved by default, but that depends on what your specific CC and Articus say. "Send me everything you have. The installation specs, the city permits, your submission to the HOA, and a copy of your governing documents." "What are my chances here, David?" He was quiet for a moment. "Honestly, legally, you are probably in the clear. But HOAs can make your life hell even when they are wrong. They have the association's money to burn on legal fees. Most people can't afford to fight them." "I can't afford not to fight them. This system cost me $15,000 to install. I am not ripping it out." "Then prepare for a battle. I will review everything and get back to you by tomorrow." That night, I did not sleep well. I kept running through scenarios in my head, each one worse than the last. By morning, I was exhausted and irritable, which was not great timing because I had to head into work at the engineering firm where I designed HVAC systems for commercial buildings. The irony was not lost on me that I spent my days designing heating and cooling systems while fighting about my own heated driveway. The violation notice arrived the next day, delivered by certified mail just like Patricia promised. It was 3 pages of dense legalese that basically said I was a horrible person who was destroying the neighborhood and needed to remove my heated driveway immediately or face escalating fines and potential legal action. David called me that afternoon. "I've reviewed everything. You have a strong case. Your CC and Articus don't specifically prohibit heated driveways, and the language about architectural modifications is vague enough that an underground system that doesn't change the appearance of your property, arguably, doesn't even qualify. Plus, they received your submission 67 days ago and never responded. So what do? I am writing them a response citing the relevant sections and informing them that you will not be removing the system. I am also going to point out that pursuing this could open them up to a lawsuit for harassment and improper enforcement of their governing documents." "Will that scare them off?" David laughed. "Patricia Kennedy, I have dealt with her before on other matters." The word stubborn does not begin to cover it, but it will establish our position and create a paper trail if this goes to court. 3 days later, I was working from home when I heard a knock at my door. I opened it to find 2 Boulder police officers standing on my porch, looking uncomfortable. "Xavier," the taller one asked. "That's me. What can I do for you officers? We received a complaint about an illegal heating system on your property." "Mind if we take a look?" My heart sank. "Patricia Kennedy called you, didn't she?" The shorter officer, whose nameplate read Martinez, gave me a sympathetic look. "We just respond to calls, sir. Can we see the system? It's under my driveway. There's nothing to see except a clear driveway." The taller officer, named Thompson, walked over to my driveway and stared at it for a moment. He touched the pavement with his hand. "This is one of those radiant heat systems." "Yes. Installed professionally, fully permitted by the city, completely up to code." Thompson turned back to me, and I saw his expression change from official cop mode to genuine interest. "How much did this run you?" "About 15,000 for my driveway size." He whistled low. "Worth it though, right? No more shoveling." That was the idea, before my HOA decided to lose their minds about it. Martinez pulled out a small notebook. "Do you have the permits?" I went inside and grabbed the folder I had prepared, knowing this day might come. I showed them everything: the city permits, the electrical inspection certificates, the professional installation documentation, and my submission to the HOA. Thompson reviewed everything carefully, then handed it back to me. "Sir, everything looks legitimate here. Your system is properly permitted and installed. There is nothing illegal about it." "Can you tell that to Patricia Kennedy?" Martinez smiled slightly. "We can tell the person who made the complaint that no laws are being broken, but HOA disputes are civil matters. We can't get involved in that." "I figured," I said, feeling defeated. Thompson was still staring at my driveway. "Can I ask you something? How well does it work? I have been thinking about getting one installed at my place. I live up in Longmont and my driveway is a nightmare every winter." For the first time in days, I smiled. "It works incredibly well. Look around. Everyone else's driveways are covered in snow and ice. Mine looks like it is a summer day." "What about the operating costs?" "About $40 a month in electricity during heavy snow months, less when it is just maintaining temperature. Way cheaper than paying someone to plow, and no wear and tear on my back from shoveling." Thompson pulled out his phone. "Would you mind if I got the name of your installer? My wife has been nagging me about our driveway for 2 years now." I gave him the information for Mountain West Heating Solutions, the company that had done my installation. We talked for another 15 minutes about the system specifications, the installation process, and the return on investment. Martinez even chimed in that his father-in-law had been complaining about the same issue. As they were leaving, Thompson paused. "For what it is worth, your HOA is being ridiculous. This is exactly the kind of home improvement that should be encouraged. Safer driveways, less salt runoff into the environment, reduced injury risk. My sister lives in a neighborhood with one of those crazy HOAs. They fined her for planting native wildflowers because they were not on the approved plant list." "Sounds about right," I muttered. After they left, I called David to update him. He laughed when I told him about Thompson wanting to install his own system. "That is perfect. Did you get his information?" "No, why would I?" "Because a police officer stating that your system is legal and properly installed could be useful testimony if this goes to court. Plus, it is just good to have law enforcement on your side, even informally." That evening, I was venting to my girlfriend Paula on the phone. She lived in Denver and was not subject to HOA tyranny since she rented an apartment downtown. "I just don't understand what Patricia's problem is," I said. "From day one, she has been on my case about everything." "Have you ever actually asked her why she has it out for you?" Paula asked. "No, because she is unreasonable and I try to avoid talking to her as much as possible. Maybe that is part of the problem. From what you have told me, she is the kind of person who thrives on conflict and attention. Ignoring her probably makes it worse. So what am I supposed to do?" "Invite her over for tea and ask why she hates me," Paula laughed. "Maybe not tea, but you could try actually engaging with her like a human being instead of just fighting every battle legally." I knew she was probably right, but the idea of voluntarily spending time with Patricia Kennedy made my skin crawl. Still, I thought about it. The next day, I decided to attend the monthly HOA board meeting. I rarely went to these things because they were usually boring discussions about landscaping contracts and budget line items. But I figured it was time to be more involved, especially if Patricia was going to keep targeting me. The meeting was held at the community clubhouse, a nice facility with a gym, pool, and meeting rooms that was probably the only good thing about living in an HOA. About 30 homeowners were scattered around the room when I arrived. Patricia sat at the head table with Martin Chambers and 2 other board members, Linda Foster and Robert Green. Patricia's eyes locked onto me the moment I walked in. "How nice of you to join us, Henry," she said in a voice that suggested it was anything but nice. "Just exercising my rights as a homeowner," I replied, taking a seat in the back row. The meeting started with the usual minutiae: budget reports, landscaping bids, pool maintenance schedules. I was starting to zone out when Patricia cleared her throat loudly. "Now we come to new business," she announced. "Specifically, the matter of unauthorized modifications to properties in violation of our architectural guidelines." Here we go, I thought. As many of you know, one of our residents recently installed a heated driveway system without proper authorization from the board. Patricia did not look at me, but everyone else in the room did. This sets a dangerous precedent. If we allow one person to modify their property without approval, it opens the floodgates for everyone to do whatever they want, regardless of how it affects our community standards and property values. A hand went up in the middle of the room. It was Tom Harrison, a software developer who lived 3 houses down from me. "I am sorry, Patricia, but I am confused. How does a heated driveway affect property values? If anything, it seems like it would increase them. That is a valuable feature." "The issue is not the feature itself," Martin jumped in. "It is about following the proper procedures. Rules exist for a reason." "But did he break any rules?" Tom pressed. "I mean, is there actually something in our governing documents that prohibits heated driveways?" Patricia's face was reddening. "The issue is the lack of approval." "Did he apply for approval?" asked another voice. It was Sandra Yates, a retired teacher. "He submitted plans, and did you respond to those plans?" Sandra continued. "The board was reviewing for over 2 months." Tom interjected. "According to our own rules, if the Architectural Review Committee does not respond within 60 days, the application is considered approved." I had not expected other homeowners to jump in on my behalf. Patricia clearly had not either. Her face was now fully flushed. "That is a misinterpretation of the rules," she said tightly. "Actually," I said, standing up, "it is not. I had my attorney review our CC and Artiques. The language is quite clear. 60 days without response constitutes approval. I submitted my plans 67 days ago. Your attorney—" Patricia practically spat the words. "You are going to lawyer up over a driveway. You are threatening to fine me $100 a day over a driveway." I shot back. "I installed this system legally, with city permits, professional installation, and after following your own procedures." "What exactly did I do wrong besides make you angry?" The room was dead silent. Patricia looked like she might explode. Robert Green, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "Maybe we should table this discussion and have the board review the specific language in our documents before proceeding. We do not want to expose the HOA to legal liability if Henry is correct about the approval process." "I second that," Tom said immediately. Several other homeowners voiced their agreement. Patricia looked like she had been slapped. "Fine," she said through clenched teeth. "We will table this matter until next month's meeting." As soon as the meeting adjourned, several homeowners came up to me. Tom shook my hand. "Good for you, man. Patricia has been on a power trip since she became president. Someone needs to stand up to her." Sandra patted my arm. "I think your heated driveway is brilliant. My husband's back has never been the same since his heart attack and shoveling last year. I wish we could afford one." "How much do they cost?" someone else asked. I found myself surrounded by curious homeowners asking about the system, the installation process, the operating costs. Even a few board members who were not part of Patricia's inner circle seemed genuinely interested. Patricia pushed through the crowd, her face like stone. "This is not over, Henry," she hissed as she passed me. "I never thought it was," I replied calmly. "Over the next few weeks, things escalated in ways I had not anticipated. First, I received a notice from the HOA's attorney demanding that I remove the system within 7 days. David fired back a response citing Colorado HOA law and threatening a countersuit for harassment. Then, Patricia had a survey crew come out to verify my property lines, apparently hoping to find that part of my heated system extended beyond my property boundary. It did not. The most absurd moment came when I received a notice that my monthly HOA dues were being increased by $200 to cover excessive legal fees incurred due to homeowner disputes. David explained that this was likely illegal since they could not charge individual homeowners for fees related to disputes without a vote of the full membership. But it showed how desperate Patricia was getting. Then something happened that changed everything. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was about to leave for work when Officer Thompson pulled up in front of my house in his personal vehicle, a beat-up Ford F-150. He got out and waved. "Hope you do not mind me stopping by," he said. "I was in the neighborhood and wanted to ask you a few more questions about your heated driveway system." "No problem at all. What do you want to know?" "Well, I got a quote from that company you recommended, Mountain West Heating Solutions. They said they could do my driveway for about $12,000. Does that sound right?" "Yeah, that is in the ballpark depending on size. Mine was a bit more because I have a pretty steep slope that required some extra engineering." Thompson nodded. "The thing is, my wife is sold on the idea, but my HOA is giving me grief about it. When I submitted the application, they said no external modifications." "Sound familiar?" I groaned. "Let me guess. Patricia Kennedy, different HOA, but same type of president." "Woman named Susan who acts like she owns the whole neighborhood." Anyway, I was telling my sergeant about it, and he mentioned that there have been a bunch of complaints lately about HOAs overstepping their authority. Apparently, there is a state legislator who is looking into it. "Really?" "Yeah. Representative Sarah Mitchell. She represents this district actually. My sergeant said she has been getting a lot of calls from constituents about HOA abuse. Might be worth reaching out to her office." I thanked Thompson for the information and went inside to look up Representative Mitchell. Sure enough, her website had a whole section about HOA reform. I filled out a contact form explaining my situation. 2 days later, I got a call from her office. A staffer named James took down all the details of my case and said the representative was very interested. "We have been collecting stories like yours as we build support for new legislation," he explained. "Would you be willing to testify if we hold a committee hearing?" "Absolutely," I said without hesitation. That same afternoon, I got another interesting call. It was from a reporter at the Boulder Daily Camera named Rachel Stewart. "I heard through the grapevine that you are having issues with your HOA over a heated driveway," she said. "I am working on a story about HOA overreach in Boulder County. Would you be willing to talk to me?" "How did you hear about this?" "A police officer I know mentioned it. Said it was a perfect example of HOAs having too much power." Thompson, I thought. The gift that keeps on giving. I agreed to an interview and Rachel came by that evening. She took photos of my driveway, reviewed all my documentation, and even interviewed a couple of my neighbors. Tom Harrison was happy to go on record saying the HOA board was being unreasonable. Sandra Yates talked about how helpful a heated driveway would be for elderly residents. The article ran 3 days later on the front page of the local section. Boulder HOA demands homeowner remove safety feature from property. It was devastating for Patricia. The article detailed the whole saga, included photos of my permits and documentation, and featured quotes from multiple homeowners and even a legal expert who said the HOA's position was legally dubious and practically absurd. My phone rang within an hour of the article going online. It was David, and he was laughing. "Have you seen the HOA's Facebook page? We have a Facebook page. Oh, you need to look at it right now." I pulled it up on my computer. The HOA's official page was being flooded with comments from residents. Most of them were criticizing the board's actions. Someone had shared the news article, and it had over 100 shares already. "This is about safety and common sense," one comment read. "The board should be encouraging improvements like this, not fighting them." "Patricia Kennedy has turned our HOA into a laughingstock," said another. "It is time for new leadership." The next comment caught my eye. "I am calling for a special election to recall the current board. Who is with me?" Over 50 people had liked that comment. "David," I said slowly, "can they actually do that? Recall the board?" "If enough homeowners sign a petition, yes. Your governing documents should outline the process. This is getting interesting." Interesting was an understatement. Within 24 hours, a homeowner named Peter Shaw had organized a recall petition. He went door to door collecting signatures, and by the end of the week, he had more than the required 40% of homeowners needed to trigger a special election. Patricia went into full damage control mode. She sent out an email to all residents claiming the news article was biased and inaccurate, and that the board was simply trying to maintain property values and community standards. The email was a disaster. It was condescending and dismissive, and it only made people angrier. The special election was scheduled for 3 weeks later. In the meantime, I continued to get updates from Representative Mitchell's office. They were drafting legislation that would limit HOA authority over improvements that did not change the external appearance of properties and were properly permitted by local governments. My case was being used as a primary example in the bill's justification. Officer Thompson called me again. "Hey, I just wanted to give you a heads up. My HOA backed down after I showed them your news article and mentioned that this was getting legislative attention. They approved my heated driveway application." "That is great news," I said. "Yeah, and I am not the only one." Apparently, Mountain West Heating Solutions has been getting slammed with calls. Everyone wants a heated driveway now. They have a 6-month waiting list. I laughed. Patricia is probably losing her mind. Speaking of which, I heard through some buddies in the Boulder PD that she made another complaint about your system. Something about it causing excessive water runoff. What? That does not even make sense. The snow melts at the same rate it would naturally, just in place instead of piling up. I know. They sent someone out to look and found no issues. She is grasping at straws. The special election night arrived and the community clubhouse was packed. Every single seat was filled and people were standing along the walls. I had never seen so many homeowners engaged in HOA business. Patricia looked tired. Her usual perfect appearance was slightly disheveled, and there were dark circles under her eyes. Martin Chambers sat beside her, looking equally worn down. Linda Foster and Robert Green looked like they wanted to be anywhere else. Peter Shaw stood up to address the crowd. "Thank you all for coming tonight. We are here to vote on whether to recall the current board and elect new leadership. This is not personal. This is about how our HOA is managed and whether we want to live in a community governed by common sense or arbitrary rules." Patricia stood up. "I have served this community for 5 years as president. Everything I have done has been to protect your property values and maintain the standards that make Meadowbrook Hills a desirable place to live. If you vote us out over one person's refusal to follow proper procedures, except he did follow proper procedures," Tom Harrison interrupted. "He submitted his plans. You ignored them. That is on you, Patricia." Several people applauded. Patricia's face went red again. The board has the authority granted by the homeowners, Sandra Yates said firmly. And we are exercising our authority right now to say you have gone too far. The vote was not even close. 78% voted to recall the board. New interim board members were elected on the spot. Peter Shaw as president, Tom Harrison as vice president, Sandra Yates as secretary, and 2 other longtime residents as general board members. Peter's first act as president was to make a motion. I move that we formally drop all actions against Xavier regarding his heated driveway system and issue a written apology for the time, money, and stress this matter has caused him. I second that, Tom said immediately. The vote was unanimous among the new board members. I stood up, not sure what to say. Thank you, all of you. I just wanted to make my driveway safer. I never intended for any of this. You stood up for what was right, Sandra said warmly. That took courage. As people started filing out, Patricia pushed past me toward the door. I caught her arm gently. Patricia, wait. She turned, her eyes cold. What do you want, Henry? You got what you wanted. You won. This was never about winning. Why did you target me from the start? What did I do to make you hate me so much? For a moment, I thought she would not answer. Then her face crumpled slightly. You really do not know? No, I honestly don't. You bought the house I wanted, she said quietly. When it went on the market, I was planning to buy it for my daughter. I told the seller I needed 2 weeks to get financing in order, and they agreed to wait. Then you came in with a cash offer and took it out from under me. My daughter ended up moving to Denver because she could not afford anything else in the area. I stared at her. I had no idea. The seller never mentioned anything about another offer. Of course they did not. Cash is king. But it cost me my relationship with my daughter. She blames me for not acting faster, and I blamed you for swooping in. Patricia's voice cracked. I know it is not rational. I know none of this was really your fault. But every time I saw you, I saw that house that should have been hers. I did not know what to say. Part of me felt sympathy for her, but another part was still angry about the months of harassment. Patricia, I am sorry about your daughter, but what you put me through was not okay. You could have talked to me like an adult instead of making my life miserable. I know, she said softly. I know. For what it is worth, I am sorry too. She walked away and I let her go. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. The next few weeks were surprisingly peaceful. The new board reviewed all of the previous board's recent decisions and reversed several that seemed motivated by personal grievances rather than legitimate community interests. They also formed a new architectural review committee with clear guidelines and response deadlines. Representative Mitchell's office invited me to testify at a committee hearing in late January. I drove to Denver and spent 3 hours at the state capitol explaining my situation to a room full of legislators. Several other homeowners from across Colorado shared similar stories of HOA abuse. The committee seemed genuinely concerned, and Representative Mitchell told me afterward that she was confident the bill would pass. Officer Thompson sent me a photo in February showing his newly installed heated driveway. Best decision ever, his text read. My wife is thrilled. My back is even more thrilled. Mountain West Heating Solutions sent me a thank you card and a gift certificate to a nice restaurant. We have installed 43 heated driveways since your story ran, the owner wrote. Thank you for the publicity, even if it came from controversy. The HOA reform bill passed the Colorado legislature in March and was signed into law by the governor in April. It limited HOA authority over internal home improvements, required architectural review committees to respond within 30 days or face automatic approval, and created penalties for HOA boards that acted in bad faith. Representative Mitchell called me personally to thank me for my testimony. "You made a real difference, Henry," she said. "This law is going to protect a lot of homeowners from the kind of harassment you experienced. In May, I was working in my yard when I saw a moving truck pull up to Patricia's house. I watched as movers carried furniture and boxes out. A woman in her 30s who looked like a younger version of Patricia was directing the movers. Her daughter, I realized. I walked over. "Hi, I am Henry, your neighbor." The daughter looked at me with recognition. "You are the heated driveway guy. My mom told me about you." "Probably nothing good," I said with a slight smile. "Actually, she said you were right, about everything." The daughter extended her hand. "I am Margaret. I am moving back from Denver. Mom sold me this house for way below market value, said it was what she should have done years ago instead of holding a grudge. How is she doing? Better, I think. She moved to a condo downtown, no HOA, said she was done with all of that." Margaret smiled. "She also said to tell you she is sorry if I ever ran into you, so consider yourself told. Tell her I appreciate that." As I walked back to my house, I looked at my driveway. It was May, so the heating system was off, but just knowing it was there gave me peace of mind for the next winter. More than that, though, the whole experience had taught me something about standing up for yourself and your rights, even when it seems easier to just give in. That evening, Paula came over for dinner. We sat on my back deck, enjoying the warm spring air. "So," she said, raising her wine glass, "are you glad you fought the HOA, or do you wish you had just removed the system and avoided all the drama?" I thought about it for a moment. "I am glad I fought. Not because I wanted the conflict, but because it was the right thing to do. Patricia was wrong, and the old board was enabling her. If I had backed down, she would have kept targeting other people. At least now we have a functional HOA board and better protections for everyone." "Very noble," Paula teased. "Also, you are kind of famous now, heated driveway guy. I can think of worse things to be known for." My phone buzzed. It was a text from Tom Harrison. "Just had a contractor out for a quote on a heated driveway. Thanks for paving the way. Pun intended." I showed Paula the text and we both laughed. "How many people in the neighborhood have installed these now?" she asked. 6 that I know of, with at least 4 more planning to do it next summer. The HOA even updated the architectural guidelines to explicitly allow them. Bet Patricia loves that. Actually, I think she is probably relieved to be out of the whole situation. Sometimes people get stuck in patterns of behavior because they do not know how to escape them. The recall gave her a way out. Over the summer, the neighborhood continued to change for the better. The new HOA board focused on actual community improvements rather than nitpicking rules enforcement. They organized neighborhood barbecues, updated the playground equipment, and even installed EV charging stations in the clubhouse parking lot. I got a letter in July from Representative Mitchell's office informing me that the HOA reform law had already resulted in over 200 complaints being resolved in favor of homeowners across Colorado. Several other states were considering similar legislation based on Colorado's model. In August, I was featured in a segment on the local news about the new law and how one homeowner's fight had led to statewide reform. The reporter asked me what advice I would give to other people dealing with unreasonable HOAs. "Document everything," I said. "Keep copies of all your communications, your permits, your submissions. Know your rights and your governing documents better than the board does. And do not be afraid to get legal help or reach out to your elected representatives. The system only works if people are willing to use it." The reporter also interviewed Officer Thompson, who was happy to show off his heated driveway and talk about how the technology made winters much safer. "This is exactly the kind of innovation we should be encouraging," he said on camera. "HOAs should be protecting property values by supporting improvements like this, not fighting them." Fall arrived, and with it came the first snow of the season. I stood at my window, watching the flakes fall, and felt a deep sense of satisfaction as my driveway remained clear. Several of my neighbors' driveways were also clear now, their heating systems humming away beneath the surface. Tom came over that evening with a six-pack of beer. "I just wanted to say thanks again, man. This heated driveway is a game changer. I used to spend 2 hours after every snowstorm clearing mine. Now I just watch it melt from my window." "Welcome to the club," I said, handing him a beer. We stood on my porch watching the snow fall, and Tom said, "You know what the ironic thing is? Patricia was right that your heated driveway affected property values." "How so?" "They went up. A house 3 streets over just sold last week, and the listing highlighted that it was in a neighborhood with several heated driveways and HOA approval for installing them. The realtor said it was a major selling point." I laughed. "Of course it was. Turns out people like safety and convenience." "Who knew?" Tom raised his beer in a toast. "To fighting the good fight and winning." "To common sense prevailing," I replied, clinking my bottle against his. As winter deepened, my heated driveway continued to perform flawlessly. Every time it snowed, I thought about how close I had come to being forced to tear it out. I thought about Patricia and her misplaced anger, about Officer Thompson and his helpful perspective, about the homeowners who had stood up with me, and about the legislators who had turned a personal dispute into meaningful reform. The holidays came and went. On Christmas Eve, I received an unexpected card in the mail. It was from Patricia. Inside, she had written, "Henry, I know I put you through hell, and I know saying sorry does not fix that, but I am grateful in a strange way for how everything turned out. Being forced to step back from the HOA made me realize how much of myself I had lost in petty control and displaced anger. I am in therapy now, working through my issues with my daughter. We are in a better place than we have been in years. I hope you can forgive me someday. Merry Christmas." Patricia. I showed the card to Paula, who had come up from Denver to spend the holiday with me. "Are you going to respond?" she asked. "I think so. Not right away, but eventually." She took responsibility, and that is not easy. "You are a better person than I am," Paula said. "I would probably throw it away." "Maybe, but holding on to anger does not help anyone. She's trying to be better. That is worth acknowledging." On New Year's Eve, Paula and I hosted a party at my house. Tom and his wife came, Sandra and her husband, Peter Shaw and his family, several other neighbors, and even Officer Thompson and his wife. We stood on my deck at midnight, counting down to the new year, and when the clock struck 12, everyone cheered. As I looked around at the people gathered in my home, I realized that the fight over my heated driveway had given me something unexpected: a real community. Not the forced, artificial community that Patricia's HOA had tried to create through rules and enforcement, but a genuine connection with neighbors who had stood up for each other. January brought the first HOA meeting of the new year. I attended, along with about 20 other homeowners. Peter Shaw started the meeting by reviewing the previous year's financials and the goals for the coming year. "I also want to take a moment to acknowledge something," Peter said. "Last year was difficult for our community. We had conflict and division, and it culminated in a recall election. But I believe we came out stronger on the other side. We learned the importance of reasonable governance, of treating each other with respect, and of balancing rules with common sense. I hope we can carry those lessons forward." Everyone applauded. The meeting continued with routine business: approval of the landscaping contract for the year, discussion of pool opening timeline, review of the reserve fund. It was boring and bureaucratic and absolutely wonderful in its normalcy. After the meeting, Sandra came up to me. "I wanted to let you know that my husband and I are getting a heated driveway installed in the spring. We got the bid last week and decided we are doing it. After his heart attack, I cannot risk him shoveling anymore." "That is great, Sandra. You will love it. We never would have even considered it if you had not fought for yours. So thank you." Those kinds of conversations happened more and more as winter progressed. People thanked me for standing my ground, for forcing the board to confront their overreach, for making the neighborhood better. It was humbling and gratifying. In February, Representative Mitchell's office contacted me again. The HOA reform law was being featured in a national magazine article about homeowners' rights. They wanted to interview me and take photos. I agreed, and a photographer and writer came out from New York to document my story. The article ran in March in a major home improvement magazine. It was 5 pages long, with photos of my driveway, quotes from multiple experts about HOA reform, and a sidebar about how to fight back against unreasonable HOAs. My inbox flooded with messages from people across the country facing similar issues, asking for advice. I tried to respond to as many as I could, pointing them to resources and attorneys who specialized in HOA law. David Chen helped me put together a guide with general tips and legal information that I could send to people. It felt good to turn my experience into something that could help others. Spring arrived, and Mountain West Heating Solutions reached out to ask if they could use my story in their marketing materials. In exchange, they offered to service my system for free for the next 5 years. I agreed, figuring it was a fair trade. By summer, the heated driveway had become such a non-issue that people barely talked about it anymore. It was just another home feature, like a garage or a sprinkler system. The HOA had moved on to more important matters, and life in Meadowbrook Hills had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Paula and I got engaged in June. She agreed to move in with me, joking that she was attracted to my heated driveway. "I am just using you for your snow melting system," she teased. "I can live with that," I replied. We were married in September in my backyard, surrounded by neighbors who had become friends. Tom was my best man. Sandra helped Paula with the planning. Even Officer Thompson and his wife attended, bringing a generous gift and congratulations. As I stood there, looking at Paula in her wedding dress, our neighbors celebrating around us, I thought about how different my life might have been if I had just given in to Patricia's demands. If I had ripped out my heated driveway to avoid conflict. I would have been safer from harassment, sure, but I also would have missed all of this. The friendships, the sense of community, the satisfaction of standing up for what was right. The following winter was the best yet. 8 houses in the neighborhood now had heated driveways. The HOA had stopped treating them as controversial, and instead promoted them as a safety feature in their marketing materials for potential buyers. Property values in Meadowbrook Hills had indeed gone up, just not for the reasons Patricia had originally claimed. I ran into Margaret, Patricia's daughter, at the grocery store in November. She told me her mom was doing much better, had even started dating someone. "She told me to tell you hi if I saw you," Margaret said. "She is still embarrassed about everything, but she is in a better place now." "Tell her I said hi back," I replied, "and that I am glad she is doing well." As I drove home that day, I thought about forgiveness and second chances. Patricia had made my life miserable for months, had cost me thousands in legal fees, had caused me stress and anxiety. But she had also been dealing with her own pain, her own failures as a parent, her own need for control in a life that felt chaotic. Understanding that did not excuse her behavior, but it did make it easier to let go of the anger. December brought heavy snow. My driveway stayed clear through storm after storm. Paula and I would stand at the window, watching our neighbors shovel or use snow blowers, grateful for the system that had caused so much trouble and ultimately so much change. Officer Thompson called me on Christmas Eve. "Hey, Henry. I just wanted to wish you a Merry Christmas and let you know that my sergeant is getting a heated driveway installed in the spring. You have officially started a movement in the Boulder PD." "That is hilarious," I said. "Also, I wanted to tell you something. You remember when I first came out to your house on that complaint from your HOA, of course. I was having a really bad day. My wife and I had been fighting about money, about home repairs, about my long hours. I was considering putting in for a transfer to a different city just to start fresh. But talking to you about that heated driveway, seeing how you stood up for yourself against an unreasonable situation, it reminded me that sometimes you need to fight for what matters instead of running away. My wife and I went to counseling. We worked through our stuff. We are in a much better place now, and it started with that conversation about your driveway." I was quiet for a moment, touched by his honesty. "I am really glad to hear that, Officer Thompson. Call me Mike," he said. "After everything, I think we are past the formalities." "Okay, Mike. Thanks for telling me that, and Merry Christmas to you and your wife." After I hung up, I told Paula about the conversation. "It is funny," she said. "You installed a heated driveway because you wanted to avoid shoveling snow, but it ended up changing your whole life." Changed a lot of lives, actually. She was right. What had started as a simple home improvement project had turned into a battle with the HOA, which had led to a recall election, legislative reform, new friendships, and apparently even helped a police officer save his marriage. Sometimes life takes you in directions you never anticipated. The next year brought more changes. Peter Shaw ran for city council and won, partly on a platform of reasonable governance and homeowner rights. Tom Harrison was elected as the new HOA president when Peter stepped down. Sandra Yates published an op-ed in the Denver Post about HOA reform that got picked up by national news outlets. My heated driveway continued to work perfectly, melting snow and ice without complaint. The technology that had been so controversial was now just part of the landscape, literally and figuratively. In March, I received a letter from Margaret. Patricia had passed away suddenly from an aneurysm. The funeral was the following week. I debated whether to go, but Paula convinced me it was the right thing to do. The service was small, mostly family and a few friends. I sat in the back, not wanting to intrude. Afterward, Margaret found me. "Thank you for coming," she said, hugging me. "Mom would have appreciated it. She talked about you sometimes, you know. Said you taught her an important lesson about letting go of control." "She taught me a few lessons too," I said honestly. "About standing up for yourself, about the importance of fighting for what's right." "She left something for you," Margaret said, handing me an envelope. "She wrote it a few months ago as part of her therapy. She wanted you to have it." I opened the envelope that night at home. Inside was a handwritten letter. "Dear Henry," it read. "By the time you read this, I will probably be gone. I have a brain condition the doctors say could cause problems at any time, and I am trying to make peace with the people I have wronged while I still can. I know I made your life difficult. I know I was unreasonable and vindictive. I let my anger about losing that house for my daughter turn into a crusade against you that was never really about you at all. You showed me what real strength looks like. Not the petty power of enforcing rules, but the courage to stand up for what is right even when it is hard. I hope you are happy in that house. I hope your heated driveway keeps you safe through many winters. And I hope someday you can fully forgive me for being small-minded and cruel. Thank you for being the catalyst that forced me to change. Sincerely, Patricia. I showed Paula the letter and we both cried a little. Life is complicated, Paula said softly. Yeah, I agreed. It really is. The years passed. Our neighborhood continued to evolve and grow. More heated driveways were installed. The HOA remained reasonable and focused on actual community improvement rather than rule enforcement for its own sake. The state's HOA reform law helped thousands of homeowners across Colorado. On the 5-year anniversary of my heated driveway installation, Tom organized a neighborhood gathering. We all stood in my driveway, laughing about how this piece of pavement had become the center of so much drama and ultimately so much positive change. I propose a toast, Tom said, raising his glass. To Henry, who refused to back down, to heated driveways everywhere, and to HOAs that actually serve their communities instead of ruling over them. Everyone cheered and drank. I looked around at the faces of my neighbors, my friends, my wife, and felt overwhelmingly grateful. Not for the conflict, not for the stress and anger and legal battles, but for what came after. For the lessons learned and the connections made and the changes implemented. My heated driveway was just a driveway, but it had also been a catalyst for something much bigger. It had exposed problems that needed addressing. It had brought people together. It had led to real reform that protected homeowners across the state. And every winter, when the snow fell and my driveway stayed clear and safe, I thought about that crazy period when the HOA called the police, when Officer Mike Thompson showed up and ended up wanting his own system, when the entire community rose up to demand better leadership and better rules. Sometimes the smallest things lead to the biggest changes. Sometimes standing up for yourself means standing up for everyone. And sometimes, just sometimes, installing a heated driveway can change the world, or at least your little corner of it. As I stood there that evening, surrounded by community and warmth despite the cold winter air, I knew one thing for certain. I would never regret fighting for what was right. The heated driveway was worth every penny, every headache, every moment of stress. Not because of the convenience it provided, though that was nice, but because of everything it represented. Progress over tradition, common sense over arbitrary rules, community over control, and in the end, that was worth fighting for.